Next presentation is prepared by Dr. Hamdan Taha and Dr. Iman Saca. The title, Dimitri Baramki, being a Palestinian Indigenous Archaeologist. Let me just a few words. Dr. Hamdan Taha is well known to many of you. He is an independent, at the moment, independent researcher, former deputy minister, and director general of the Department of Antiquities in Palestine from 1994 to 2014. He directed a series of excavations and restorations projects. He acted as national coordinator of the World Heritage Program in Palestine from 2002 to 2014, and currently a coordinator of the Palestine History and Heritage Project, for which he has co-authored in an introductory volume, New Critical Approach to the History of Palestine, and authored a chapter titled Excavating Earth and Memory in the book Our Vision for Liberation 2022, edited by Barut and Ilan Pape. He is the author of many books and many academic contributions. Dr. Iman Saca is a leading scholar and interdisciplinary educator in archaeology and anthropology. She is currently the vice president of, or designate for academic affairs at Bethlehem University. Dr. Saca has been an advocate for cultural protection, preservation, and promotion for over 20 years. She is also the chair of the Department of Anthropology, Sociology, and Criminal Justice at Giusta University in Chicago. Dr. Saca research focus on community archaeology and history and public education in the field of archaeology and heritage. She has been involved in several archaeological excavations in Palestine, including Hisham Palace in Jericho. Dr. Saca possesses about preserving and reviving the Palestinian art and embroidery through her work with the Palestinian Heritage Center in Bethlehem. So this presentation will be delivered by Dr. Hamdan Taha.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for introducing me. Good morning, everybody. I'm really delighted to participate in this important conference with all colleagues from different parts of the globe, and to present the story of a distinguished Palestinian archaeologist named Dimitri Baramki. Used to be described as the founder or the first Palestinian archaeologist. And his story is more like the Palestinian history in a way. Most importantly, his vision, his inclusive vision of history, of archaeology versus a dominant, exclusive vision of history, namely Zionist vision. We will go through slide presentation. This is young Baramki and Sabhan. This is aged Baramki in Beirut. I will talk about these points as an indigenous archaeologist. His Baramki family, bibliography, professional life of Baramki. As his role as the inspector of archaeology in the Palestinian Department of Antiquities, then his field work. And his main excavation at Khirbet al-Marjar, identified with Hisham's Palace, curator of the Palestine Museum, his work in Lebanon after 1948, and his publication, and I will dwell a little bit on his inclusive vision of history. The history of archaeology in Palestine is linked with colonial erasure, theft, denial, and silencing of Palestinian voices. Archaeology was used by the British and Israeli archaeology as an ideological tool to justify settler colonial claims on land and history. Dimitri Baramki is a native Palestinian archaeologist who was an active archaeologist during the British Mandate period and an eyewitness to the great upheaval of the Nakba. He became one of the most influential figures in the history of archaeology in Palestine. He is frequently called the first Palestinian archaeologist. I will talk quickly about biography, work, and his inclusive vision. Baramki stemmed from Dimitri stemmed from Baramki family. This is a document from the 17th century, published by the Bejari poet Iskandar Malouf in Majallat al-Athar about the family of Baramki. The Baramki Orthodox family was raised in Jerusalem as part of the Orthodox community and traces back to the 17th century. The old books of the Greek Orthodox Church in Jerusalem has a record of Mikhail Baramki. He was a historian and an iconographer, and who was awarded the title of Economist of Jerusalem. Ibrahim Baramki was also the advocate of and founder of Jacob Church in Jerusalem. In the Mar Jacob record, the names of 4 priests from Baramki family, Mikhail, Jacob, Baramki, Kostandi, and Khadar. Dimitri Baramki was born in Jerusalem, 1909. As a child, he visited or received his education at the St. George School in Jerusalem. At the age of 19, he was appointed a student inspector, special grade in the department, the mandatory department of antiquities of the British mandatory government. In 1927. In 1934, he completed his academic studies at the University of London. From 1938 to 1948, he served as chief antiquities inspector in the place of Dr. Robert Hamilton, who was appointed as a director general of the Palestinian Department of Antiquities. During his work, Baramki at the department, he conducted a large number of salvage excavation in throughout the country. At the end of the British mandate in 1948, Dimitri Baramki led Jerusalem Palestine Archaeological Museum, known now, the name of the museum was changed to Rockefeller Museum. He got his PhD degree in 1953 from University of London. Here, two stages in the life of Baramki. The first stage in Palestine, where he was active and worked as an inspector at the Department of Antiquities till 1948 in Akbar. Then his life in Lebanon, when he moved to Lebanon to work as a curator of the AUB, the American University Museum in Beirut, where he also continued to live till his death. This is Baramki to the right. The young Baramki during, he got a scholarship. He was 19. Went to AUP in sort of a camp. This is Baramki. Got information from family archive of the Department of Antiquities. There was a short paragraph written by Dr. Helga Seiden. Jericho Museum dedicated a corner for the role of Dr. Baramki. Then, of course, Dr. Donald Whitcomb wrote a short biography in IPS, and in our publication, jointly with Dr. Baramki, we have highlighted the role of Dr. Baramki, and there is also a short article by Rami Baramki. Here is a set of studies about Baramki. These are some examples of short biographies about Baramki, written by Helga Seiden, by Twelfth team this week in Palestine, following the re-excavation or the excavation the site carried out with Chicago University in the framework of cooperation between Palestine and Chicago. Also, the role Baramki was highlighted. His professional life began as an inspector of antiquities in the Department of Antiquities. He used to follow archaeological discoveries, accidental discoveries. This is an example of a discovery in Nablus of a Roman tomb, for example. But his main deed, his main contribution in Palestinian archaeology is his excavation at Hisham's palace. This is Hisham's palace in the Jordan Valley. He started his excavation in 1935 and worked till along 12th season till 1948 almost, and recovered one of the most distinguished Umayyad palaces. This is part of the discoveries of Dr. Baramki. Two inscriptions in Arabic were found mentioning the name of Hisham Amir, the Prince Hisham. This was the base for attributing the site to Qasr Hisham. These are some of the documentation of Dr. Baramki's excavation, 1930s. Here we see part of Serdab. These are general views of Baramki excavation, including the main palace and showing the open courtyard. And in this column with bearing across was also found in Hisham's palace, and we will later know that story, why such a column bearing across was found in the site, and it was linked to his excavation at Tal el-Hassan, where he excavated the Byzantine church. And apparently during the Umayyad period, and that was the practice in all period, to take stones from demolished building and to reuse it. This is the plan and section of the palace, and that is probably the wonder which has been uncovered, the mosaic floor of the Grand Bath. It is the largest continuous piece, as it is said by the ministry, in Palestine. This is, of course, colored, showing the extent of the mosaic. This is a reconstruction of the palace, showing the main eastern facade of the site. These are some finds and discoveries from the Umayyad period. And here in the small museum at Hisham's Palace, it established a link between the site and the Palestinian Archaeological Museum in Jerusalem, where his archaeological discoveries are displaced in 3 rooms. Of course, as a full integral archaeological report, he used to write field reports after each season. Then also in 1947, he wrote a guide for Hisham's Palace. This is his dissertation, Arab culture and architecture of the Umayyad period. Baramki excavated in a series of archaeological sites, mostly salvage excavation. Just to name, in Jerusalem, YMCA, Beit Lahem in different places, Khirbet Asida, Buraq Suleiman, Tal el-Joron in Jericho, Tal el-Hassan, Tilul Abu Alayk, Nitle, Khirbet el-Nitle, Qalandia, Beit Natif, Tel Balata, Silt al-Dahr, and there is many more. This is one of his discoveries in the village of Parkha, an inscription of Naskhi script dated to the Ayyubid period, discovered and reported by Baramki in 1980s. He wrote also the first guide for Petra, The Road to Petra, in 1947. This is part of the documentation of his joint excavation with the American archaeologist and biblical scholar James Kelso in Tilul Abu Alayk, and under the New Testament archaeological site in Jericho area. This is part of his excavation at Tal el-Hassan, uncovering a church from the Byzantine period. This is also part of his excavation in the most debuted site in Jericho, in Shahwan house in Jericho, known as it is a Byzantine synagogue from late 6th century, early 7th century, with an inscription, and it was excavated at the site in 1930s in the land of Shahwan family, a Jerusalemite family, and they kept the mosaic in the basement of their house. This is excavation at Abu Alayr, part of his publication in Jericho. Then, after the Nakba, Baramki moved to Lebanon, where he worked as a curator of the American University, the AUP. He, of course, supervised and published a series of guides and exhibition, coins, collection of he reorganized the Islamic section in the museum. there is a series of publications. He wrote an exemplary book about Phoenicians, and which has been translated to German. And I will end with these are examples of main works of Baramki, a series of articles, a long list of articles. Were
3 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. The inclusive vision of Baramki. He viewed the archaeology of Palestine as an integral whole. This was best reflected in his major work, The Art and Architecture of Ancient Palestine, a survey of archaeology of Palestine from the earliest times to the Ottoman conquest. This was published in 1969 and a work commissioned by the Palestine Research Center when he was living and working in Lebanon. This work reflects his inclusive vision of history. This is his book. I quote, in his introduction book, Baramki was aware of the methodological challenge in writing the history of archaeology or the archaeology of Palestine. He pointed to 3 or 4 books on the subject. I think he was referring to Albright, Archaeology of Palestine, and to Kenyon, Archaeology of the Holy Land, by eminent archaeologists, most of the Old Testament scholars. And no matter how objective they attempted to be in the presentation of their material, they could not free themselves entirely from their biblical background. Even before the critical work of Whitlam, Thompson, and many others, Baramki diagnosed the methodological error as in most of these books by saying there is an emphasis on the archaeology of the Old Testament period at the expense of other periods which are unrelated to the Bible. Baramki acknowledged, of course, the paramount importance of the archaeology of this period, but equally important, or perhaps more, so are the periods of the following the Old Testament era, which have been deliberately neglected. So far, he gave examples of the Byzantine period, represented by 2,500 ruins, and the Arab hold on the country for 1,300 years. A period longer by far than any held by other nations or races is completely neglected. I will end here. The contribution of these periods and the consequent periods are completely ignored when an assessment of contribution of the various civilizations of the country is made. The more evident in the archaeological introduction of Palestine, as it stopped at the end of the Byzantine period, in most of these introductions. Baramki elaborated his critique on the methodology of biblical archaeology as tend to treat the 400 years of Old Testament history as though they were the only important period in the history of Palestine. He added the 6,000 years of settled life prior to the establishment of the United of the Kingdom of Israel and Judah, tend to treat as the preparatory era of the final triumph of the state of Israel, without emphasizing the far level of civilization reached for the arrival of the Israelites. Baramki, after surveying millennia of Palestinian history, concludes, it is apparent from the foregoing survey of archaeology in Palestine that the country was the home of many divergent folk all through the ages, from the appearance of Homo sapiens, I would say now more, 1 million years ago at least, in the area. In the 13th millennium BC down to the 20th century AD, in spite of the various invasions of the different nations and races, there always remained a residue of the original inhabitants of the country. In no instance was the indigenous population of the country completely annihilated, but they were absorbed to some extent by the invading nations or races who settled in the country. He asserted that throughout the history of the country, there was a Palestinian entity. Circumstances have forced the Palestinian time and again to change their nationality and creed, but basically they remain the same. The entity of Palestine must be preserved. Palestine must belong to the Palestinians, be they Jews or Christians or Muslims. A state based on the tenets of one faith is inconceivable in the 20th century. Baramki, in his epilogue, adheres a secular society for Palestine by stating that American Jews, English Jews, and French Jews living in predominantly Christian countries enjoy equal rights with other Christian citizens of those countries. The same must apply to Palestine. And the Jews in Palestine should not hold a privileged position over his Muslim or Christian compatriot. I will end with this statement. Baramki concluded in this book that although history had often forced Palestinians to change their identity and creed, but a Palestinian entity has endured. Thank you very much.